Russians are desperately trying to break into Sumy Oblast and carve out a buffer zone, but are instead walking straight into a Ukrainian trap. Nightly ambushes destroyed Russian assaults before they could even begin, while unsuspecting Russian infantry was funneled into deadly kill zones, Euromaidan Press reports. In the short term, the main Russian goal is to push Ukrainians fully out of Kursk and into Sumy Oblast. Russians plan to advance deeper into Sumy and create a large buffer zone in Ukrainian territory. By creating a buffer zone, they hope to prevent another Ukrainian cross-border incursion, as the main Ukrainian force that withdrew from Kursk remains strongly operational still. In the long term, according to the Institute for the Study of War, Russia plans to use a buffer zone as a staging ground for a future offensive into Sumy Oblast, potentially bringing the city of Sumy within artillery range. Similar to how Ukrainians planned to use Kursk as leverage to trade for Russian-controlled Ukrainian territories, Russia hopes to use gains in Sumy to pressure Ukraine into ceding eastern territories instead, or expanding its own territorial claims to include Sumy as well, Euromaidan Press says. To combat Russian plans of creating a buffer zone, Ukrainians are using a flexible, multi-layered defense in the forests near Kyiv. To prevent the frontal defenses from collapsing under constant pressure and incurring significant losses, Ukrainians are allowing some Russian assaults to pass through, luring them into brutal ambushes as they are cleaned up by Ukrainians manning the defenses in the rear. A flexible defense does not mean that Ukrainians are just letting all enemy assault groups move freely into their back line, regardless of whether they get ambushed and destroyed or not. Ukrainian fighters from the 225th Separate Assault Regiment, using infrared lasers to point out and target the Russian soldiers, lasers that are only visible to the Ukrainians because of their night vision goggles. Overall, Ukrainians are successfully holding a flexible defense in Kursk to block any Russian attempt to create a buffer zone into Sumy Oblast, Euromaidan Press reports. The earlier coordinated withdrawal allowed Ukrainians to set up a flexible and multi-layered line of defense, exploiting predictable Russian attack vectors in ambushes and surprise minefields throughout the forests, thanks to superior coordination. Even when Russians breach the first line, the rear defenses can quickly destroy the advance. If the success of the Ukrainian defense continues, Russia's advances can be stalled here indefinitely, preventing another deep push into Ukrainian territory.
Вот груз 200 привезли. Вон стоят. Вот стоят. Это все пацаны. Вот полная машина. Там дальше машины стоят. А?
Не за Кундусом?
Или нет? Мы с Бузякой. Вот. Это вот. Груз 200, груз 200. Ой, блядь, пацаны. Пацаны.
Как вы сказали, куда?
Нет, мы в Бузяк. Вот груз 200 привезли. Вон стоят. Вот стоят. Это все пацаны. Вот полная машина. Там дальше машины стоят. А?
Не за Кундусом?
Или нет? Мы с Бузякой. Вот. Это вот. Груз 200, груз 200. Ой, блядь, пацаны.
Как вы сказали, куда?
Нет, мы в Бузяк.
Dramatic CCTV footage from a grocery shop in the Ukrainian city of Sumy showed the moment a devastating Russian missile strike hit the city in the deadliest attack on Ukrainian civilians this year. According to Associated Press, back-to-back missile strikes rocked the city on Sunday, killing 35 and injuring more than 100 others. Video captured by security cameras from in the Gifts of the Sea shop shows workers running outside after a first strike shakes the building. Minutes later a second strike hits much nearer, breaking glass, sending goods flying and smashing holes in walls. The manager and 2 salespeople were seriously injured while others in the shop suffered minor injuries, according to sales assistant, Lyubov Ivashina. I was working, doing my job, then there was an explosion. I fell to my knees. And after the explosion I saw people running around with their heads pierced and others wounded, she said. She described running outside and seeing a woman come down the street with 2 injured children. With her colleagues she flagged down a passing vehicle and helped the injured girl aboard, then the second missile hit. I don't think there's any justification for any of this. I think that any misunderstanding in a state or between states should be resolved on a more civilized level, she said. The attack in Sumy, which had a pre-war population of about 250,000, came just over a week after a Russian missile strike killed about 20 people, including 9 children, in the central Ukrainian city of Kyiv. Russia said it was targeting a meeting of soldiers, but there is no evidence to support the claim.
Я працювала, займалася своєю роботою непосредственно. Потім був вибух, упала на коліна. І після вибуху я бачила, що там почали люди бігти, як з крова, голова пробита, ранені почали йти. Мы выскочили помогать им. Слева, со стороны пиццерии, девушка несла 2 детей. Мальчик там, по-моему, был маленький, в районе годика. А девочка, лет 7. Девочка была ранена в район ключицы. И я помогала ей. Сначала маленького ребенка держала, а потом смотрю, что там с девочкой плохо. А мои коллеги в этот момент уже там некоторые помогали машину остановить, потому что надо было девочку везти в больницу. И помогали погрузить. Я поехала с той девочкой, и в тот момент, когда я зашла уже в бус, мы детей погрузили, зашла в бус, я держала девочку. И когда коллега закрыла двери, только трогаться, там секунды мы начали отъезжать, и был второй взрыв.